There we go. Perfect. Yeah, if people want to grab a seat, we'll get going here in just a moment. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It has been a very, very exciting day and a half, 2 days here. I cannot believe how much collectively we have packed in over the last day and a half. And I know as we're coming to today and some of the sessions are winding down, it's great to see everyone here. This is going to be a very significant discussion, I think. The Secretary, when she welcomed everyone the first night, asked us for action, action, action. We want to take, commitments, but bring them to action because it doesn't do any good if we're just all talking. We need to get the technology out there. We need to get the production built to get our new green technology. So today, we're going to talk about that exactly in this great session on sustainable aviation fuel taking off across the globe. Perfect, perfect wording. I will say, I am Michael Barry. I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Sustainable Transportation at DOE. I have been, working in transportation quite a few years. Just a few years ago, sustainable aviation fuel was something that a very small number of people talked about. There's certainly been a lot of work and technology going, but today it has now come into much broader understanding, vocabulary. You can't take a plane, especially an international flight these days, without reading, the signs outside at the airport or in the airport magazine about sustainable aviation fuel and the commitments that airlines have made to use that fuel. So I'm going to have two speakers here. First, I am very, very proud to introduce Secretary Granholm, who really needs no introduction, but has been a tremendous supporter of this effort and our work. So, Secretary?
I'm so lucky as the DOE Secretary to have come into a department with unbelievable people, Michael being at the top of the list. So grateful to you and your leadership in transportation, sustainable transportation. We have a great team, do we not? We do. Very briefly, because I know you got to get at it. Obviously, almost all of us probably traveled to Pittsburgh on a plane, and aviation has brought our world together. And for those of us here today at GCEAF, it allows for 33 nations to come together and figure out collectively how we want to advance sustainable aviation fuel. We cannot imagine a world without planes. We sort of lived a little bit of this during COVID when everybody stopped flying, and it was unacceptable. So we can't imagine a world without flight, and yet we can't live with the pollution that it produces. So if we were, if the aviation sector were its own country, in terms of the emissions, it would be one of the top 10 emitters. So we've got to do something about this. It's the fastest growing source of, one of the fastest growing source of emissions in the entire world. Here in the U.S., jet fuel demand accounts for, in fact, predicted to increase by about 40% by 2050. That's just a huge amount of increase. SAF is the most important tool in our arsenal to be able to address this sector, and it's why a year ago the U.S. government did launch our SAF Grand Challenge, which was an audacious and achievable goal of meeting 100% of jet fuel demand with SAF by 2050. DOE's been preparing for this moment for decades, as Michael was suggesting, through research and development for sustainable fuels. We invested another $59 million in June to support new biofuel technology efforts. We're grateful for our cross-government partnership, including the Department of Transportation. You'll hear from the FAA here in just a minute, and USDA, our Department of Agriculture, as well. I want to acknowledge Secretary Vilsack, who could not be here, but he's a huge champion of sustainable aviation fuels because we know what it means for our agricultural sector. Plus, obviously, we have the private sector on our side with dozens of airlines that are committed to buy SAF as soon as it's produced, or who have made decisions on their own to produce it themselves. Demand is not our problem on here. It is supply. And of course, the Inflation Reduction Act provides some great incentives for the production of sustainable aviation fuel between $1.25 up to $1.75 per gallon. That's a great incentive, right? So we can do this now. So we're excited to reach the next milestone on the path to this goal, which is the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Grand Challenge roadmap, because you can't get to a destination without a roadmap, and particularly, key performance indicators and all of that. So over the past year, we have consulted with the private sector. We've consulted with transportation experts to develop this roadmap about how we can scale sustainable aviation fuel on a commercial scale. We're targeting production by 2030 of 3 billion gallons, and then by 35 billion by 2050. 35 billion, which is the full aviation sector. That's the goal. The roadmap shows us the steps we need to be taking, where what our benchmarks ought to be. We're not going to decarbonize aviation or solve climate change without an all-in effort. It's obviously not just the United States. So glad this is a global conference that is committed to this, because every one of the countries who are here have got to do their part, right? All of the agricultural sector in these countries have an opportunity to do their part. Super exciting. It's all about the partnership between government, the private sector, airlines, farmers, making sure we've got researchers in the game doing the best continuous improvement strategies to get additional efficiencies as we develop and deploy. So we are very excited to see the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Grand Challenge take flight, pardon the metaphor, and so glad to be able to work with all of you on this journey. So thanks so much. Let's get at it.
Excellent, excellent. All right. Well, look, as the Secretary said, we cannot do this without partnership, both global partnership, but also I really want to highlight government partnership. Just last week, Secretary Granholm, Secretary Buttigieg from Department of Transportation, Minister Regan from EPA, the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development got together, and the four of them basically signed a formal agreement and direction to all four of their agencies to work together within 90 days to develop a comprehensive roadmap for decarbonizing all parts of transportation, every mode, every piece, and to really signal that commitment that these agencies are going to work together up front beforehand, not just kind of talk after and we kind of, what are you doing, what are we doing, but to actually make plans together, divide our resources. We can't all do everything, figure out who's got what parts of the pie, and we are going to be publishing very detailed plans for every single piece of transportation. And of course, today we have the Sustainable Aviation Fuel Roadmap, which is a key part, not all of what we need to do on aviation. And I'm really happy to be able to introduce my partner at the Federal Aviation Administration, Annie Pensonk. She's the Assistant Secretary for Aviation and International Affairs. And she and her team really have been tremendous partners to work with and embody this sense of all of government work together here in the U.S.
Thank you. It's great to be here on behalf of the Department of Transportation and the Federal Aviation Administration. I want to thank Secretary Granholm and the Department of Energy, the Department of Agriculture, who are our partners in the work on sustainable aviation fuel. I want to thank these departments for your team's dedication and inspiration on the SAF Grand Challenge. You're great partners. I also want to welcome our colleagues from around the world. Thank you for coming to Pittsburgh. Thank you for sharing your vision and your commitment to clean energy for all of our future. Personally, I'm elated to be back in Pittsburgh, the city of engineers, the city of grit, spirit, and creativity. My father was an engineer. He was the first in his family to go to college. He took graduate classes in electrical engineering just down the road from here in the Cathedral of Learning. Those of you Pittsburghers appreciate that. And when I was growing up in the central part of Pennsylvania, our family would drive over here to Pittsburgh. It was always a thrill for us to come here. We would marvel at the incline plane, the bridges. We would cheer the Pittsburgh Pirates at Forbes Field. My images are of the Iron City sign, for those of you Pittsburghers who remember that, which has recently been relit, the largest neon sign of it at its time, and the steel mill flares. On the way home, we'd stop in Squirrel Hill to get rye bread, and everywhere we went in Pittsburgh, my father would engage us in the engineering of this great city. He'd make us count the lights in the tunnels and think about who put the lights in the tunnels, who designed them. Of course, he designed some of them and put some of them in. But thinking about the people behind the engineering marvels that make this city so vibrant. Pittsburgh's revitalization today is buoyed by two landmark pieces of legislation, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. I want to join with you to celebrate the Inflation Reduction Act's incentives for sustainable aviation fuel and salute the publication of the National Roadmap for meeting the SAF Grand Challenge. The SAF Grand Challenge builds on the U.S. National Aviation Climate Action Plan, which the Federal Aviation Administration and the Department of Transportation launched last year at the Conference of the Parties in Glasgow, Scotland, the Conference of the Parties to the Framework Convention on Climate Change. And that Aviation National Action Plan sets a goal for U.S. aviation of net zero emissions by 2050. My dad was a pilot, too. He dreamed of being able to fly on fuels produced by farmers instead of fossils. Now we have this incredible opportunity to make that vision a reality. The roadmap launched today is how we'll do it. It's a true interagency collaboration. We're going to move forward together, the Department of Transportation, the other departments, Department of Energy and Agriculture, and our other interagency partners, and with all of our stakeholders and partners around the world, with the grit, spirit, and creativity that is the hallmark of this city and the hallmark of the work that we'll need to make sustainable aviation fuel the norm, the standard, the reality for all of aviation. The roadmap is also a testament to what governments can do for people. I come from a community here in Pennsylvania that, as you travel around this area, you can see needs jobs, needs development. The roadmap can catalyze the innovation and the employment that can help bring sustainable aviation forward in a way that benefits local communities. The Department of Transportation looks forward to working with all of you on the roadmap ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annie. U.S. commitment here, which is a private sector and government together, right, to produce 3 billion gallons by 2030. Very, very specific target. That's what we got to get to. That number is important because that allows us to be on a pathway to get to 35 billion by 2050. It means expand the feedstocks that we are using, and we have a lot of work to do over the next 7 years to get there collectively. But it's no good. I mean, it'd be nice, yes, if the U.S. does that alone, but quite honestly, if we just do it and there is not a global effort, then it's not nearly as valuable. So we're really happy today to have the support of so many others as well, in agreement that this is a key pathway. I'd like to call up a partner from the International Energy Agency, Paulo Franco, who will be leading the next panel and really focusing on the international piece.
So, good morning, well, good afternoon maybe. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to speak at this event, which for me is a very important milestone. And please allow me to give you a bit of numbers from IEA's views why this is the case. Let me start with this. I'm responsible for renewables at the IEA, when we speak about renewables, we tend a little bit too much to speak only about renewable electricity. And within renewable electricity, we tend a little bit too much to speak about wind and solar. And we forget that already today, the real hidden giant of renewables is bioenergy, by far much bigger in total final consumption than wind and solar together. What is more important is the role of bioenergy in the future, and let me give you a few numbers from our net zero roadmap, or roadmap to global net zero that I hope all of you are familiar with. First, by 2050, bioenergy is set in this scenario to account for 100 exajoules, 18% of total world energy demand, the second largest source just after solar. Why is that? Because bioenergy is so flexible and coming from multiple feedstock, can provide multiple services in terms of power, but also heat and transport, and particularly be important in those hard-to-abate sectors like transport today. And now coming more specifically to aviation, in our roadmap, bio-based SAF is a huge component to decarbonize aviation emissions, representing 15% of global fuel use in aircraft by 2030 and 45% by 2050. Then another big part will probably come to hydrogen from hydrogen and synthetic fuels. So this is our net zero scenario and why we think this is fundamentally important to have so much attention now on SAF. But in our short-term market analysis, we think that depending on the policy which are in place, there is a potential in the next years to expand, to grow by 10 to 40 times from current levels over the next 5 years, this would mean reaching around 1 to 4% of total global jet kerosene consumption. Now, this is why the announcement of today is so important. It is not the only one, though, and first of all, I would like to commend the United States government for this achievement, for this very crucial milestone. It is important also that in other countries or regions, in Europe, the European Union is working on the RefuelEU Aviation initiative that includes a proposed 2% SAF blending mandate by 2025 and rising targets to 2050. We will hear about other countries in a few minutes, so I will not speak about those. I would like to also remind that the aviation industry is increasing its support for SAFs through fuel purchase agreements and investment in technologies. In just this year, in 2022, the aviation industry announced more than 13 billion liters of fuel purchase agreement, which is a 30 times increase compared to just 2 years ago. And this market-driven and the fact that we have so many industry representatives here today is a really very important achievement. Now, just to be clear, this is a very important milestone. It is not enough to set up the world into a net zero pattern. We need much more. And what we need in particular are policies that reduce the investment risk for scaling up the sustainable fuels investment in the next round. And the other thing which is very important, there is a huge potential for innovation in this field, but it has to be fostered by the right policy measures. So a major goal of the policies is precisely the need to foster innovation. And with that, I would like to stop it here, give the floor immediately to Secretary José Guilherme Resende, I hope I pronounced it right, who is Secretary for Energy Planning and Development at the Brazil Ministry of Mines and Energy. Sir, please.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm in a very tight spot, talking after Secretary Granholm and all you said everything. So I will just focus in 3 insights that were based on Brazil experience that I hope can be useful for the debate today. The first one relates to the question, do we have enough biomass? Well, in short, in Brazil, yes. A recent study on Brazil bio-based SAF potential prepared by the Roundtable of Sustainable Materials and the Agro-Icon Institute indicated that potential for SAF reduction from agricultural and urban residues in Brazil is up to 9 billion liters, which is around 125% of the current fossil kerosene, Jet A, consumption in Brazil. And most of this they are residues from sugarcane industry. It's also used for ethanol, and we have a very good technology of this transformation of sugarcane residues. Please let this sink in. Just using these residues alone, Brazil currently has the potential to substitute all of its aviation fossil fuel demands with surplus to spare. The second finding relates to carbon accounting. We need to harmonize our ways to account for the emission savings from all sources, including biofuels, electrofuels, hydrogen, and others. ICAO and Corsa scheme brought the first mechanism to address such challenge. We need to evaluate the opportunity of improvement in this methodology. And the final remark is with respect to policy models and incentives. We hail the US SAF Grand Challenge roadmap, which will put the country on the forefront of this development. In Brazil, we are putting the final touches on the Future Fuels program, which will include provisions for incentivizing SAF deployments, among other stuff. The challenge here is to promote these developments while avoiding an increased burden on consumers, developing countries, and emerging markets. International collaboration and sharing lessons, including through the Biofuture platform, will be crucial for minimizing mistakes and to scale up fast. So it will be a public-private collaboration across countries. This is fundamental that we do like this. This event epitomizes these collaborations, and I am optimistic that this group here will be able to keep the momentum going and get this new industry off the ground. Thank you very much.
Me? No. Yes. Okay. It works. Thank you so much. So we have received the apologies of Minister Singh from India that is not able to join us, but I would like to invite to the floor Dr. Sangeeta Kasture, who, among other things, also co-leads the Mission Innovation initiative on biorefineries and biofuels. Dr. Kasture, please.
Thank you so much, Paulo, and I'm very delighted to be here. And as I mentioned, Dr. Singh has to leave Pittsburgh to do some other engagement. I would like to mention that India is the sustainable aviation fuel is very important, and India is also co-lead for the innovation platform, which is one of the collaboration platform on sustainable aviation fuel, along with the US Department of Energy. And there is biofuel policy in place in India, 20%, currently 20% is the target by 2025, which is for the ethanol and biodiesel. So I would like to mention here that, because Irina has mentioned, there is a definitely demand for that, but we need to work on the feedstock availability. So, and sustainability is very important. So in that aspect, what we are looking at the second generation advanced biofuels, India has already demonstrated the jet fuel because SpiceJet already worked, but that was on the HEFA. This is with the technology based on the Jatropha oil. So now we are looking at the advanced biofuels and jet sustainable aviation fuels using the biomass feedstocks and sugar, etc. So there are technologies available, but we need to understand how these technologies can be cost effective as well as the high efficiency. So I am representing Ministry of Science and Technology, Department of Biotechnology, and we have recently, I would like to mention here that we have announced the call for proposals for the sustainable aviation fuel, and we have identified different pathways, and I'm glad to inform that more than 60 R&D proposals have been received, so those are under review process, and shortly will be coming up with the innovative technologies which would definitely useful for demonstrating the sustainable aviation biofuels in coming next couple of years. But we will also like to engage the industries. There are many industries and public-private partnership. There are several schemes available in order to have the collaborative projects for this is very important to make these sustainable aviation fuel deployable and for into the takeoff for the flights. So that's very important. I would also emphasize here that we do have schemes to support startups innovations. For various platforms are available, instruments are available. So those are, and we are also encouraging the decentralized energy, and sustainable aviation fuel also is not the exception for that. So there is a lot of opportunities, and India, I would say that per day there would be, even if it consider 1% aviation fuel, currently the demand would be 150 tons per day. That's the demand for aviation fuel. So that's what I would like to mention. And thank you for the opportunity, Paulo. I would stop here. And thank you so much.
Doctor, let me just add from the IAEA privileged view of the world, how important it is the leadership of such huge emerging economies like Brazil and India. I would like to commend you for this, but I would also like to thank you for your accent on the importance of international collaboration, and the IAEA stands absolutely ready to facilitate in any kind we can, including being the facilitator of the Biofuture platform. Now with this, I would like to conclude the part on the policies, and I would like to give the floor to Jim. But allow me to say the last word. I'm impressed by these policy changes, but I'm even much more impressed by the unprecedented momentum that I see in industry as a source of innovation, of new ideas and new business models. And this, for me, is a turning point. With this, please, Jim Spaeth, you have the floor.
Thank you, Paulo. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you all with our concluding event under the GCEAF. It's been a great couple of days, but this is the pinnacle of the conclusion. Very excited to be here for the SAF Grand Challenge launch. I'd like to invite the industry panelists to please come up and sit with me on the stage. And I'm going to use a little football jargon, and that I'm going to call an audible. We could not have every leading producer in this industry on this podium among this group of great leaders, but I'm going to ask all these leaders to talk about how the aviation industry, with their help, is going to take off globally, truly globally. But I would be remiss without recognizing the leading SAF producer in the U.S. and the first SAF producer in the U.S. With that, I'd like to just give a few words to the CEO of World Energy, Gene Jabolis.
Thanks, Jim. It's fantastic to be here. We're about to get going with what should be a fantastic panel. I think when in talking amongst ourselves, we all recognize that there is something special happening here these 2 days. This moment in time is unlike any I've ever experienced in the 25 years I've been working to displace fossil fuels. This is a complete new day. And SAF, a year ago, the Department of Energy put out a challenge. What's a challenge? Just see if you can jump this high. Put out a challenge. And many of us, number of the producers on the panel, and we responded to it. We're spending over $2 billion to expand our facility in California to produce the first 250 million gallons and our path to our commitment to contribute $1 billion. We've just announced our plans to produce our second plant in Houston, which will be effectively a copycat of our first in Los Angeles. And we're working hard on what comes next. We all know that this has to be a path to something. I'm looking very much forward to hearing what the panel has to say about what that something is. Thanks very much.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce a real pioneer in this industry and innovator, Mr. Pat Gruber, CEO of Gevo. And you can come up here if you like.
All right. Great. Thank you, everybody. It's nice to be here. Gene, you've been the leader in making it open for all of us, and I appreciate it. It's good. Gene's done a great job. His company's done a great job, as have the others. Gevo is all about net zero footprint jet fuel. Net zero, I said, or negative, carbon negative. How can that be achieved? The biggest source of carbon emissions in the manufacture of jet fuel is actually fossil-based energy, the electricity and the natural gas. So what do? Say, well, that's got to go. We're building a wind farm, be 100 megawatts. We're already built a biogas facility to power that plant. And now what about those feedstocks? The feedstocks, that's all about sustainable agriculture, measuring the things on the field, documenting it, measuring it carefully, field by field, tracking it, capturing. We're using corn as a feedstock here in the States. Why? We can capture 100% of the nutritional value of the protein, sell it to the marketplace, capture the oil, use the residual carbohydrates as the feedstock. We can drive that whole CI score down to zero by doing so. Argonne GREET has done an outstanding job guiding us through the years. We go back 20 years, I think, Valerie, right, in this, because I worked on PLA and developed that. NatureWorks PLA, these Ngeo cups that you've been drinking coffee from, I developed that years ago. GREET model helped guide us back then as to what the techniques were. Get rid of the fossil-based resources out of the business system. Business system. The business system. This is what's important. Measuring across accurately, scientifically, absolutely committed, kind of with zealotry. You have to. With no politics, document the data, report it transparently, lay it out in the open. And to that end, we're developing a tool called Verity Tracking. It's a blockchain-based technology, and we're going to track everything and just report it openly. It is what it is, and we're going to improve from there, because that's what sustainability is. We have great partners with Delta, American Airlines, and all these people who are taking our product, already signed agreements, pre-purchasing and committing to buy our product on a take-or-pay basis, meaning if we make it, they're going to buy it. That's hugely important for financing, and I want to thank them. It's a whole big group of them. And so it's Alaska Airlines, Finnair, Japan Airlines, British Airways, Iberia, Qatar, Aer Lingus, Colmar, and Trafigura, our trading companies. We already have more than 350 million gallons pre-sold. We have a lot of plants to build. Our first one we broke ground on last week in Lake Preston, South Dakota. It's going to produce about 55 million gallons of SAF, about 6 million gallons of gasoline and diesel fuel. It'll produce about 420 million pounds of protein, 40 million pounds of vegetable oil, and it is going to be powered by wind, biogas, off the grid. Thanks.
Next, it's a pleasure to be introducing a company that was founded in India, but is truly a world leader in technology. I'd like to welcome to the stage Sri Shishir Joshipura from Praj.
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon. When an aircraft takes off, it has to land somewhere. So let's assume that we took a flight out of Pittsburgh and landed in India, Delhi, and the scenario changes. India is a country of 1.3 billion people and growing. And I think that's a number that needs to stay with us. Let me give you another number. It is projected that 350 million people will graduate to what is fondly call as middle class consumers, the guys who actually fly. So 350 million people is the population of Europe. So what are we looking at? We're looking at a country that is just at the threshold of becoming a very, very attractive market. Along with the market, the nature did not give us carbon below the ground. India doesn't have a great reserve of oil below the ground. But it has given us something else. It's given us land, it's given us lots of sun. It's hot. And it's given us a population that's very agriculturally dominated, lots of farming community. And that gives us a great, great opportunity in form of the feedstock that we all been discussing here. At the last calculation, and Dr. Kasturi will probably clear me, the national biofuel policy that was unleashed in 2018, Indian government is now almost irreversibly committed to the path of biofuels. I've lived in a country where my company was founded 38 years ago, and for good 35 years of those, we have struggled to get a policy going for biofuels. But in 2018, everything changed. And we are now on a path. So just to give you some idea, in 2019, on the ethanol blend, we had 3%. We have tripled that already in the span of 4 years. And we are further going to double it in a span of next 3 years. So it's a very, very aggressive policy support from the government. We also recognize that as we go, that was all happening on the ground transportation. What happens to the next stage of mobility, which is SAF, that all of you have been talking about. And I'm very proud that we found a very able partner in GEVO. I hope they have the same opinion about us. And others in the room with whom we are in discussion to actually create a solution that could solve the feedstock problem. So our challenge is very simple. Create a solution, create a capability that becomes feedstock agnostic for creation of a molecule that we all can value. It's a great journey that we are beginning now. We are very happy at this partnership that we have with GEVO and few in the making. Our government is greatly supportive. And we have a market which is big and growing. Aircrafts have to land from America somewhere. So India could be the next frontier. Welcome. Thank you.
And I think there'll be a wonderful opportunity for many of us to visit India next year, and I hope this whole crowd makes it, and we look forward to that. Now it's my pleasure to introduce a different sector of our larger sector. It's great to have a large and innovative oil company here among us. We all realize that the larger oil companies are realizing that there's a role for biofuels in their future and decarbonization. It's my pleasure to introduce Carlos Maurer with Shell. He's the Executive Vice President for Sectors and Decarbonization.
Good afternoon to all of you, and a great pleasure to be here, and truly energized by these last 2 days, and indeed how fantastic it has been to interact with so many of our partners, but also of industry players, and that commitment to grow sustainable aviation fuels, which is today the fuel that is available for us to decarbonize aviation. On the part of Shell, we have been in the aviation industry for 100 years. We celebrated 100 years in operation last year. We have been working very hard on both the demand side, but also on the supply side, to really generate this emerging business and to really scale up. And to do so, we have also made some commitments around how much of our aviation fuels will be sustainable aviation fuels by 2030, so 10%. And we also have committed to increase our biofuels by 8-fold, basis on a 2019 baseline by 2030. So we are really working on both the demand and the supply side. And I think, as I've said many times during this week, that synchronization effort is extremely important. And the support that we are receiving as an industry from policy makers, and I believe, and I do want to congratulate the United States for the Inflation Reduction Act, because it's a well-developed policy. It is comprehensive. It really touches all the aspects of the value chain. And I think those are the type of policies that you want to see, that treats both the demand and the supply side. But also the SAF Grand Challenge, I also think that is a great signal from the industry also about how it aspires to really grow sustainable aviation fuels. But let's remember that even on challenges as big as they are, you're still talking about 10, 15% sustainable aviation fuels by 2030. There's a long, long way to go to 2050 when we want to be net zero. And I said it also, for Shell, we are committed to be an energy provider, a net zero energy provider by 2050. The bulk of our emissions are Scope 3, is in the use of our products. So if we don't really get to net zero, so we don't produce enough sustainable aviation fuels to get to net zero for our airline partners, then we won't meet our own goals. So committed to work and continue to collaborate across to bring new technologies. I'm delighted to have some of our partners here with us today, because we're going to have to pull on every lever that we have. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Now it's a pleasure to be introducing three companies that are very innovative in the space, bringing new technology and new pathways. And that start will be with Jeff McDaniels. He is the Vice President for New Projects at Velocis.
Thanks, Jim. And I guess as I get here, I just want to say thanks to so many people. With the passage of the IRA, it does set in place a great incentive to help spur on SAF. Velocis is a small company looking to do really big things. We want to be able to utilize sustainable cellulosic feedstocks to convert them with the use of renewable power and couple that with carbon capture to be able to deliver a deeply negative SAF product. But man, we have to rely on the help of so many others. We need folks who lay the foundation and get SAF into airlines and figure out the infrastructure issues and how to move it into pipelines, and people who worry about the nitty-gritty of how to calculate a life cycle score and then do all the hard work to lobby and actually form that into policy that sets a foundation. And that's a lot of work to do it in one place and gets done all over the world. We're trying to build upon the tremendous effort, and I really sense that and feel that as I'm here with the group. All the folks have been committed in each and every way to make the SAF industry happen. We're going to try to do our part, damnedest we can, to make it happen. What we want to do is be able to not just put in our first project in Natchez, Mississippi, which we call the Biofuels project, but to use that as a template to do many, many more, in each one of them being able to squirrel away or put away on a permanent basis 500,000 to 1 million tons of CO2. We, focus on trying to reduce the carbon, reduce the footprint. We look forward to doing that, and we look forward to continuing to work with great companies like Southwest Airlines and British Airways, who's fully committed to take our offtake from our first facility. And we look forward to continuing to work with other folks who are here on many different aspects of the project. So I just want to say thanks. Bye.
Now it's my pleasure to introduce an individual that could give us a history lesson in SAF development and vision. With his previous career at United, really breaking down barriers and truly a visionary to help set the path that we are now on. Now I'd like to introduce the current and the now CEO of LanzaJet, Mr. Jimmy Smartseas.
Well, hello, everyone. It's phenomenal to be here and to be chatting with you this afternoon. I think there's two concepts that I really want to chat with you about. One is urgency, and the other is partnership. From an urgency perspective, today is a new day. It feels like we have a sense of urgency to actually tackle the issues ahead of us related to climate change, and we're doing all the hard work that's required to actually make an impact. Along with that urgency comes, from our perspective, a requirement to take action today. It's not about trying to get to the perfect solution 10 years from now. We've got very good and very great solutions available today for us to have a significant impact. And as LanzaJet, we use ethanol as our feedstock, and we convert ethanol into sustainable aviation fuel and into renewable diesel. We can use any ethanol. And if you look at our biofuels market today in the United States, we have north of 16 billion gallons of ethanol being produced. If you look at Brazil, there's another 12 billion gallons in South America, in Brazil in particular. So you have nearly 30 billion gallons of ethanol that are available today. Not all those gallons are the right gallons to be used for SAF, because sustainability matters to us. Taking the right actions to reduce the climate impact of those biofuels matters. But those molecules today are being used for road transport. Road transport is electrifying. It's an opportunity for us to use existing biofuel markets to create a new market for them in sustainable aviation fuel. But we have to do it in the right way. We have to find the right ethanol that comes from energy crops that meets the right sustainability criteria, but that is happening. So we work on multiple pathways. We can use and access ethanol that exists today, and we're also creating new pathways for ethanol. In India, we partner with LanzaTech, who founded our company and founded our technology that takes waste gases from refineries and is converting that into ethanol, right? In China, similarly, taking that steel mill off gas and converting it to ethanol. We can take MSW and convert it to ethanol, right? The sky's the limit, really, in terms of creating the right source for that ethanol. We have plenty of opportunity. In Brazil, we partner with Hyzon. They have second-generation technology to create waste-based ethanol streams. We work with Clariant, right, who has their first second-generation sunliquid plant up and running in Romania, right? These are all technologies that are extremely important to get to the right sustainable aviation fuel. So for us, it's about the urgency, taking action today. A year ago, when the SAF Grand Challenge was announced, we announced our commitment to produce 1 billion gallons of the 3 billion gallon target by 2030. We are well on our way. It takes working across the value chain and across many companies, including Shell, who's one of our investors, to do that, right? We're scaling our technology. We're going from 10 million gallons a year, which is our first plant in Georgia, will be operational in 2023, to 10 times that, right, around the world. That's really the opportunity that we have, and we can use existing biofuels if they're the right biofuels, and we're creating new streams of ethanol as well that create an abundance of feedstock. Feedstock's not the issue for us, right? It's our ability to get to scale and to deploy our technology across the globe. And by the way, we're doing that, right? We've got 2 projects in the United Kingdom. We've got 1 in Sweden. We've got 1 in Central Europe. We've got several here in the United States. It is about taking our technology, making it relevant to that geography, using that full value chain and supply chain and partnerships, and deploying it in a way where we can get to scale quickly. And that's what we're doing. So thank you again for giving us the opportunity to be here today.
It seems appropriate that the last individual that I will introduce is perhaps the father of SAF actually being produced in the U.S. I don't want to say grandfather to insult anyone. I'm a grandfather, but so it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Brian Sherbico, the CEO of Alder Fuels.
Thanks, I guess, Jim. Hello, everybody, and I guess I have the pleasure of bringing us home here at the end of another successful day. Thank you to your efforts. Thanks to Jerry. Thanks to Paolo. Amazing event. And to me, it's incredibly inspirational to have the international element now, because in order to go where we need to go at the speed we need to move, this absolutely has to be an international effort. So picking up on the theme from Jimmy with regard to a little bit of a history, I'll do my best. Those who know me, trying to do this in just a few minutes is an accomplishment, so hopefully we'll get there. But the history of SAF goes back for me back to 2008. And this is a story of celebrating successes, which is a very important thing for us to do, as much as celebrating the importance and the success of public-private partnerships. And it's an example, in this case, with the United States, and hopefully we get to do this on a much more international basis, of what it means and the importance of the catalytic inputs that government policy, incentive, grants, et cetera, can be for the development of novel technologies and new energy solutions. So back in 2008, the U.S. Department of Defense had put some money into a project for the demonstration of what we now call sustainable aviation fuel on behalf of the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Navy for energy security purposes. I was very fortunate to be in the right place, to have the opportunity to step in and help commercialize that core technology. And so in 2009, I had the privilege to co-found a company called Altair Fuels for the express purpose of doing that commercialization. And in 2010, we received a grant under the then President Obama's stimulus funds, the ARA funds, that combined with the founders' money was the sufficient capital to demonstrate the business plan sufficient to raise additional private capital to ultimately go implement that core technology into the Southern California facility that is today in the good hands of Gene Gabolis and World Energy. So that was the first commercial operation or production of sustainable aviation fuel, and it's been wildly successful producing fuel, sending it to LAX consistently, ratably since January of 2016. So that's a win, not for myself, not for Gene, that's a win for the policymakers who set the framework that enabled us to go as innovators make that happen. So thereafter, we dreamt about how do you expand. So to us, scale is the big issue today. And we thought about the problem that was inherent within that first generation of SAF, which is feedstock. We talk about the need to innovate around feedstock so that we can properly address the entire marketplace. And we have an issue with the fact that fat oil and greases that are in this first generation of SAF are inelastic relative to demand. So how do we serve that space so that they can continue to refine and serve the customers that need that material? You scale raw materials, and that's what we're doing at Altair Fuels. We believe that biomass in the form of woody biomass, which can be either forest residues, agricultural residues, or specialty grasses in the form of energy crops, are scalable, are global, do have the right environmental complexion, do have the right price to enable us to be cost competitive. And so we've been developing a technology for the efficient conversion of that into a crude oil. And critically, it's a crude oil that can go into the biorefineries that are being developed today and also into the existing refinery complex globally, so that we can continue to enable the investments that have been made and the workforces that already know how to operate and produce and distribute and market fuel to continue to do what they do and effectively just create a carbon-appropriate crude oil to go into that system very efficiently. So to that end, I want to thank the Department of Energy, who a year ago, effectively today, at the launch of this fantastic program of incentivizing sustainable aviation fuel in the Grand Challenge, gave us a grant to work on miscanthus, one of those energy crops. And we're now demonstrating the ability to convert that into a crude oil, to create SAF, to be able to expand and meet all of those metrics we just talked about. So thank you to the Department of Energy, and we're excited about the continued support, and we're continuing to develop this both domestically and internationally. So thank you very much.
So speaking on behalf of the DOE and the U.S. government, we look forward greatly to working with you all for success for aviation fuels taking off under the roadmap and every other umbrella. If you could join me in giving all of these folks another round of applause. And it's now my pleasure to introduce the last panel. And our moderator will be Andrew Chen with the Rocky Mountain Institute, or RMI, as I believe they refer themselves today. He's the principal for aviation decarbonization. And this panel will consist of users and companies that help us deploy and really take advantage of that SAF, put it in the sky. RMI, as you probably know, is a true thought leader in our space, a real visionary, often gives us very challenging visions and goals to pursue, and we're thankful for that. And Andrew.
Thanks so much, and I'll invite all my speakers to come up here. I know we've got a short amount of time left, so I'll try and keep my remarks very brief. I just wanted to remark that, you know, where we are today is a massive improvement in terms of our promotion.
We're not going to be kicked out.
All right, we're not going to get kicked out. That's great. Okay, fantastic. So you don't have to go home. You can actually stay here. This is nice. What I was going to say is actually the last time that I ran into Deputy Assistant Secretary Petsonk was in June 2019, and we were just kicking off the Clean Skies for Tomorrow Coalition. We're talking about how do we make a market for SAF happen. And that seems like a lifetime ago, but it is really only 3 years ago. And a lot has happened that time. And I think the incredible, comments and progress remarks we've heard from our fuel suppliers and producers, the offtake agreements that we're hearing about, from all the way now to the policy and the IRA, which is truly a milestone moment for the development of the SAF market. Incredibly encouraging times. At the same time, that sense of urgency has never been more real. We have to scale up our efforts, and I'm very proud to present and offer up some time for our panelists today to talk about some of those things that we're doing to help do that. So with no further ado, could I please ask Gerhan Andak, the Engineering Technical Leader for Aviation Fuels at GE, would you like to share a little bit about what you're doing on SAF and how you're helping to contribute towards that 3 billion gallons by 2030 and 35 billion gallons by 2050?
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm delighted to be a part of this significant event and panel. I'm representing here a leading commercial and military engine manufacturer. In fact, 3 out of 4 commercial engines that take off worldwide today are GE and CFM engines, and advancements in engine technology is very significant regarding carbon reduction. But even with that, we all understand here, at least, that we will not reach net zero carbon in aviation without alternative fuels, especially without sustainable aviation fuel. We at GE are working on technologies such as hybrid electric and open fan. We are working on hydrogen, assessing hydrogen as an option as well. But these technologies will not replace the need for SAF, and they will not be in service until mid-30s. SAF, on the other hand, is a fleet-wide and infrastructure-wide applicable solution, and it is available now, at least from a technology perspective. Current challenge, of course, is production and adoption of SAF at the levels that is required. And the US government roadmap that was just announced, as well as the incentives under the IRA, will most certainly be very instrumental in helping with that. So I would like to thank the US government on behalf of GE Aerospace for those actions and efforts. Now, airlines, they operate aircraft that use the SAF, but the engine burns the fuel. And safety is paramount in aviation. There are no parking lots in the air. You cannot pull over and pop the hood. So from that perspective, the manufacturers, and for us, GE, it's extremely important to help ensure that the new fuel technologies introduced are safe. Therefore, we are very heavily engaged in synthetic fuel evaluations and qualifications, and also the standardization as well. I myself am the chair of the relevant ASTM committee that oversees the qualifications of synthetic fuels, including SAF. The very committee that actually owns and maintains the only global standard specification for such fuels. I also chair the ASTM task force that is in charge of standardizing 100% unblended synthetic aviation turbine fuel, including SAF. You see, no one entity will accomplish all that needs to be done with respect to decarbonization and SAF. It's a joint industry effort, and we as GE Aerospace doing our part and looking for other ways to improve our impact on the SAF ecosystem for aviation and for the people and for the planet. Thank you.
Now, I was asked to go alphabetically by last name, but I think I'll do a little bit of gender, gender pattern here. So Sheila, Sheila Remes is VP for Environmental Sustainability at Boeing. Sheila, could you share some thoughts on what you see as the key drivers and the work that Boeing's been doing to help accelerate the SAF market?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And just to reiterate, really excited to be here. We at Boeing have been working on sustainability from the inception. It's what we work on because fuel efficiency is what our customers need. So it's absolutely paramount. And so from the beginning of the jet age to today, emissions reductions have happened to 70%. But that's not enough, and that's why we're here today. The sustainable aviation fuel is vital for the industry that connects the world, that inspires the world, that creates diplomacy, that creates jobs. So this is such an important element for us to be engaged in for that very reason. It's for our customers and for society as a whole. And from that standpoint, we've been engaged on sustainable aviation fuels, I would say, for at least 2 decades. 2008 is such a pivotal point because it's at the point in time where things started to happen. But before that, there was a lot of collaboration with the Air Transport Action Group, with a number of the NGOs that have been helping us over the years think about this and make sure that we're doing it in a smart way, a sustainable way. And so that journey continues with all of our collaboration that we do across the OEM spectrum. We also committed to 100% sustainable aviation fuel airplanes by 2030. Everybody has talked about maybe we'll have 10%. The reason we focus on 100% is those airplanes fly for 20, 25 years. We need those products to be available for that 100% capability of SAF at that future date. So that's one element that we work on. But again, we work across all of the spectrums, and in this particular role, what is exciting to me is the fact that we work across from agriculture to energy. Those are not typical aviation places where we play. We've played a long time with the FAA. That is our partner to be able to bring these things to life. We play globally, so we do a lot of work in India, Brazil, our 90th anniversary coming next month or next week. So all of those elements are really critical. But from a foundational standpoint, what we need to continue to work on, and a lot of people have said this, is renewable energy feeds the sustainable aviation fuel as we move forward. That's important. It's also really critical for us, because we're a global entity, to be able to think about book and claim, how this can move around the world, and we can't stop progress. We can't let it lie in just one particular region, because we do land in airports around the world. So we do need it to show up everywhere that we possibly can. So we're really thankful for the U.S. government to be able to put forward the IRA. We're excited that other governments and other entities are putting policies forward that can enable this to continue to move around the world. And again, thank you. This is an amazing event to bring what we like to call working together to reality. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Sheila. Let's turn now to some perspectives from our airlines in the room. Tom Michaels is Director of Government Affairs for United Airlines. Tom, can you tell us a little bit more about how United is helping to not only spur production of SAF, but also allow access from some of our customers and corporates who are interested in investing and getting involved in SAF?
Sure, thanks, and thanks everybody for having me here. I feel honored to be on this session of SAF speed dating. I'm a Sagittarius. No, just kidding. Yes, you know, the secretary, when she was here, said something that really struck me. She said it's not a demand problem, it's a supply problem. We use a ton of fuel. 4 billion gallons a year just for United, and the total amount of sustainable aviation fuel that was produced last year was roughly 4 million gallons. So obviously there's a bit of a mismatch. But what the real issue there is the economics. The economics need to work for the fuel producers, and right now they don't, right? You make a lot more money making renewable diesel generally than you do making SAF. So the SAF tax credit that our fearless coalition leader Alex Minotti worked so hard with me to get over the line with the administration and the IRA is going to make a big difference there. But we really do need to work with coalitions. So we are working with tons of coalitions, I almost can't keep track of them, to, one, make sure people understand that the demand is there, that it's durable, it's not going anywhere, that we are fully committed to meeting these emissions targets, and our fellow airlines are right there with us. But we also set up something pretty innovative, I guess earlier this year, if my COVID time is correct, and that's our Eco Skies Alliance. And the Eco Skies Alliance is really a financing mechanism for SAF. And we worked with some of our largest corporate customers, all you professional road warriors out there that are on their planes all the time and whose companies are booking, you know, huge volumes of tickets with us. They want to reduce their Scope 3 travel emissions. And so they worked with us to come up with a way where they would help us finance the green premium, right? The additional amount that the SAF costs to produce. And so far, that's great. We've got 30 companies signed up, ranging from BCG, whose consultants are on the road all the time, to Nike, to I'm going to forget them, AbbVie, Takeda, a whole lot of really wonderful companies who have signed up, and they get set volumes, right, that equate to the miles traveled. And in exchange for paying a little bit more for those tickets, they get the Scope 3 emission reductions. So that, you know, that's one way that we are working to finance this, to make the economics work for everybody, right? They have to work for the producers, they have to work for the airlines. We can't just go out and unilaterally agree to pay more for fuel than our competitors, right? It's not going to work. This isn't a suicide pact. So we're trying to square that circle and make it go. This is one promising mechanism, but we are all ears for other new innovative financing partnerships. We're talking actively with our federal partners about some possible avenues of cooperation there. You know, I think the federal government plays a huge role in convening, in doing things like helping to finance with all the IRA money, and as well as the other bills that have the Biden administration has courageously put into effect this year. So just a great amount of opportunity. We all kind of keep working together. Collaboration is the name of the game. When the challenge is so huge, and we're starting down here, right? 4 million gallons. We need a little more. So there's plenty of challenge out there and plenty of demand.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. And I certainly agree with you. Not a suicide pact we're trying to create here. I think it's a race to the top is what I'd like to describe it as. Yeah. But last but not least, Laura Tremblay is Senior Sustainability Consultant at Southwest. Lauren, could you share a few thoughts on what Southwest is up to and what you see as a key driver for making SAF?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. You know, Southwest has both long-term and near-term climate goals that we're working towards, one of which is to replace 10% of our jet fuel consumption with SAF by 2030. It's something that a lot of airlines have really rallied around. But we recognize really where we stand today with that. You know, jet fuel consumption really only makes up less than 0.1% of, SAF makes up less than 0.1% of jet fuel consumption today. Going from the 4 or 5 million gallons you're talking about to the 3 billion gallons, you know, that's about a 600-fold increase over the next 9 years. So there's a long way to go, and Southwest is really committed to working in these collaborative efforts in order to really get there. So we've made strides towards, especially our near-term goals, you know, with our offtake agreement with Velocys. Really, we're aiming towards not only our gallon goals, but also our carbon intensity reduction goals as well. And also through our investment with Sapphire, really kind of looking at these collaborative relationships with the DOE and NREL to really push forward these collaborative mechanisms to partner and really find these solutions that can take all different parties. But we do recognize there are still some hurdles that really need to be addressed in order to scale to the level that we need that scaling to happen with. So I think a lot of it has been mentioned here today already, but when we look at things like blend limitations, so Boeing working on increasing those and being able to fly on higher percentages of SAF, that'll help us not only for our 2030 goals, but for the 2050 vision when we're looking to completely replace conventional jet fuel with SAF. So there's a lot that needs to be done kind of today that we're all kind of working on together and getting there step by step. And I think really that collaborative effort is key, and that's why kind of the sessions over the past 2 days here at the summit have been so fascinating and so exciting to see all of us rallying around the same cause, the same goals, and our goals are really intertwined. So for one of us to succeed, we all need to succeed together. So really excited for the vision and the future moving forward there.
Thanks, Lauren. Thank you. Now, folks, could you help join me in not only thanking our panelists, but also welcoming Dr. Valerie Reed, the director from the Bioenergy and Technology Office of DOE, to help close us out today. So thanks, everyone.
So how is everybody feeling? Oh, I got something. It's Friday. It's been a long week. I know that. Imagine not having been able to be here because aviation didn't exist. We would not have these critical conversations, these important international understandings, and all of the partnerships that I know are being created as people are in the room together or enjoying lunch or having coffee. We require aviation because we are a global society. Business is done over aviation, our corporate partners, our government travelers. People travel for vacations, to be with family, and to meet other people and understand the world around them. And for those who can't travel, maybe have never been on an airplane, the goods, the products that they have in their stores today are brought to them by aviation. So I think you'll all agree with me, we have to solve this problem. We have to come up with sustainable aviation fuels. And I believe with the roadmap, but more importantly with the conversations that we had leading up to the creation of that roadmap, that we most definitely will get there. So when I answer my own question, how am I doing after this week? I am incredibly excited and I am energized, and I can't wait to get into the office, Michael, and get to work. So with that, I'll say thank you to all of you for being here. And please, a round of applause for Jim and Jerry, who brought the Biofuture platform together. And have a great weekend.